Australia, that they weren't all on the same page. So I did exactly what you said. We had butcher's paper, we had everyone there, and we pretty much just did from the first interaction to the last. And one of the things that I was thinking was to try and pull that value proposition together, to confirm it, but to internalise the brand as well, you know, what they actually felt and what they actually wanted to deliver. But one of the outcomes was a lot of them didn't ever see the whole process. They never actually really knew what happened after they did their bit. They had some sense, but they actually didn't know. And the feedback that I got, especially from new people, is, well, at least I understand what we do, which was kind of interesting. And the CEO basically said to me, and this is what I wanted to get your opinion on, Dan, you know, that was fantastic, and we identified some pain points and some opportunities, and we can move forward, which is great. And we understand that our value proposition is right, that we actually can hold the customer's hand through this journey, and we can do it better than today. But I think we need to do this again and again and again. And so you know, not just do it once, he wants to do it every year, which is fantastic. But the other thing that I want to ask you about repeating it, but the other thing was, is it important that the customer actually is ever part of that mapping?
So two things there. First is ideally, and it doesn't always happen, and for example, when we do it as a consultants, we only go so far the way, and we try to advocate it, that this is a living document. And it's very common to create an experience map of the current state, and then create some sort of customer journey of the ideal future state, and then knowing you can't get to that future state overnight. That's why you might do the road mapping, and you might plan out what are the stages you're able to improve over, say, first 6 months and the next 6 months or 9 months or whatever your intervals. And it gets to be, especially for large enterprises, these are big endeavors. We're turning a giant ship around, and so it takes a while. But ideally, then they're living documents that get revisited twice a year, every quarter, whatever that is. And I do think that's an important point to make. And then with regards to the customers, I absolutely do think so. It's not something I've done a lot, but I actually contributed a sidebar to a friend's book on facilitation, and kind of working with people in a user research standpoint. And we've been talking about how customer experience maps in a structured way could be really great sort of hybrid focus group workshop types of activities. I mean, focus groups often kind of have a bad rap. I think, going back to how they were in a kind of open-ended way, but now they're often very participatory, creative, structured activities. And I think an experience map where you have 6, 7 people in a focus group who you're trying to get information about, like, insight into how their journey with this product might have been, how their experience was using this product or this service, is a great participatory way for them to collaboratively sort of create the journey for you. So obviously you can do lots of qualitative and quantitative research, synthesize that, and as a team create an experience map, but kind of creating these like proto experience maps with like 2 or 3 focus groups where they're in a structured way are helping communicate what the journey is or what it should look like, I think is a really great and useful activity. And it's only something I've done a little bit of, but I think whereas traditionally I would do the research with those end users or those customers, and then kind of take it back, and as a team we'd do it. I think it's a really useful activity to get them to tell their stories, that literally can start to construct your experience map from that. So having them involved in that process, I think, is definitely something that we'll probably see more of, or at least the direction that customer journey maps might go, where it's not just something the designers do, it's something the designers involve in a participatory way the customer is doing.
Yeah, because it's sort of still an assumption otherwise, and it'd be kind of nice to just validate it. Or, I don't know, I just think customers know what they want sometimes. Sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
But
I think it's a really good point.
It's it's just something I've been thinking about, because this is all new to me, and I'm thinking, well, maybe I should have the customer in this room as well, or maybe we should show them the map and they should say, well, in actual fact, don't do that there, or whatever. So
when we did not to cut off your question, but just to follow through on the thought, when we did the Rail Europe thing as that example, what we did in our qualitative research was we had to do remote interviews. We couldn't do in-person interviews, but we used screen sharing with the participants, and it was like I think 8 participants, maybe 10. And it was similar to the focus group but it was in a one-on-one sense, is that we started to construct the journey. Like the reason we had screen sharing is that we were taking bits that they were saying, transcribing them down into like sort of like, I mean, it was visually on a page, but cards that we were sort of stacking or lining up in different ways. And so we were starting to create a bit of a journey model from his or her quotes, the research participants' quotes. And so in that way, we were starting to record and craft a journey based on what they were describing through their experience that way. And so it is just being more cognizant of a few key factors when you're doing some type of contextual inquiry or user research interviews, and you want to understand the time and the place, and then the context around any given touch point of what they were thinking and feeling and doing, what might have been involved, like the phone channel or the mobile channel. But you can then start to create individual journey maps, and then you still have something to synthesize if you have 8 or 10 of those to do that and look at the commonalities, just like you would in a persona. I mean, it's a similar type of process where you're looking at the commonalities to create an archetype journey. And so yes, the focus group, I think, is one way, but even when we were doing our sort of one-on-one qualitative research, we were sort of having them involved in the process by having them create those journey maps for themselves as well.
Mm. So it seems like, to me, this whole area of service design is sort of evolving. I don't know if it seems, from what I've read, it's multidisciplinarian, you can come from different areas. What do you see happening at the moment, just in that whole field?
I would agree with that. I mean, service design has been around for a while, and a lot in the public space and some traditional services like healthcare. I think technology has provided a catalyst for service design to get adopted and integrated on a more wider design level. I think the fact, and particularly mobile, but the fact that a retail store used to have a retail store, and maybe they had a call center, but now they have websites and mobile sites and a call center, and every one of those forms a person's impression of that company, whereas they might have thought like, oh, here's our thing, and our thing might be our big box store, and then we have these supporting things that might get some attention, might not, but the really key thing is that store. And now it's not, any given touch point, whatever channel that is in, whether it's a store or it's a mobile phone, is forming their overall experience. And I think that customer experience, I think on that kind of retail standpoint, customer experience has started to think in a service design mentality. And then obviously a lot of traditional services that maybe should have service design methodologies or thinking applied to them are realizing they need that because of the introduction of those multiple channels now. So I think that's really what's happening. I mean, I see service design, on the one side from service design, it's become part of the conversation because of the adoption. And then on the kind of the digital product design side, things that looked like products are now looking more like services, and you need a new set of methodology. And that includes the journey mapping. It includes things like service blueprints, something called ecosystem mapping, where you're not really mapping the journey yet, but you're just trying to get a discovery of like what's involved, like what people are involved, what places are involved. And so I think there is sort of this integrating of the lines are getting blurred between things that might be user experience design, might be marketing, might be service design, because we're sort of swapping methodologies, because we're realizing that the customer or the end user isn't thinking in terms of marketing or a service or a product. They're thinking in terms of this overall experience, and they're influenced by the marketing. They're influenced by the way the sort of analog connected touch points are, and they're influenced by the technology that also might support that. And so I do think it's an interesting time where there's a lot of things being formed, because we're all of a sudden realizing, you said it already, I think the key word is that it's going to be a cross-disciplinary approach to understanding that. I think that's what's going to be key.
I know, but it's also really exciting because this collaboration that perhaps hasn't happened before. I guess the only thing that I'm thinking is when it's in a larger company that facilitation of that process could be tricky with the volumes of people involved, because there's personalities and agendas, and I suppose that's why if you've got the customer at the centre, I guess that should sort of resonate with everyone.